Okay, guys. This brings us to our next demo, the next step in the stool making process. Okay, so we went over last time about how to trim our end and cut to final length, and this time we're actually going to measure and lay out for where all of our holes are going to go for the dowels that tie these legs all together at the bottom. So. This project, although there's not that many pieces, is kind of a complicated project because we're dealing with all these angles, right? We've got these compound angles going on, and it kind of plays with our mind a little bit. So one thing that I always like to do is just draw notes or lines to myself on here so that when I go to a machine to do a process, I don't have to be thinking about, okay, which way was that board or which way am I going to turn it? So we're going to write some notes to ourselves here on these pieces. You're going to orient these boards, you're going to orient your legs at this point all in the way that they're going to be in your stool. Okay? So, here we go. They're going to look just like that. See, it looks like a stool already, right? And you're going to take your pencil and label, you're going to take an arrow, and I know you guys can't see this, but I'm going to show you in a minute here. You're going to put an arrow that points to any of the inside faces, okay? And an inside face being anywhere that it's going to have holes for a dowel drilled into it. The last thing we want to do on this project is drill a hole on the outside face, obviously where there's not going to be anything. Then that's going to be a pretty obvious mistake. Okay, so just like that, you guys can see that I've drawn arrows that point to just the inside faces. Okay? So what I'll do then is I'm going to lay these things out on my workbench, and I'm going to make these things so that they're facing opposite directions, if that kind of makes sense. So I should be looking at an inside face. I should have one of the inside faces up at this point, and I've got like a point and a valley and another point and another valley, and they should line up the same on both ends. Does this kind of make sense? Yeah. All right. So I have like an opposite leg thing going on here, and I'm looking at an inside face. So from there, if you look at your procedure sheet, you'll notice that the first hole needs to be drilled 6 inches up from the bottom. The second hole is at 12 inches. You guys can refer to your procedure sheet for that. So you can take a ruler. We're going to measure very carefully 6 inches, put a little mark. You guys will notice again I've got my pencil nice and sharp. And another little mark at 12 inches. And then you can take your square and go and make a line across all of these things together. Just like that. Okay? So now we have our marks. We have a line at 6 inches from the bottom and a line at 12 inches from the bottom, and this is where we're going to be putting our holes. Okay, the next step is to find out exactly where the halfway point. Oh, by the way, we can also take your square then and transfer this line around the corner to the other inside face. Okay, so you see where your arrow's pointing here? The other inside face, you can just take your square. And I'm not going to do this on all of them. You guys know how this works. Okay. There we go. So now both my inside faces have my layout mark. Okay, so you guys can do that on all of them. The next step is you're going to take your marking gauge, and you guys are all familiar with these. This is a really cool, easy way to find the exact center of this board without even using a ruler. I know it sounds funny, but sometimes the less you use a ruler, the more accurate you can be. Yeah, I know, that sounds weird. Take your marking gauge and eyeball it to about halfway. And you guys would be surprised, but you can actually be pretty accurate with your eyesight. Okay? Give yourself a little mark and lay it out from both sides. Actually, you know what? My eye was so accurate there, my mark actually lined up in the same spot. So that's perfect. But if it didn't, you'd end up with two lines that are very, very close together. And the center between those two would be your exact center where you're going to drill the hole. Okay, so you're going to put a mark there and just lay it out from both sides. Okay, just like that. You're going to do the same thing for all of them. Just lay that out from both sides. Okay, so it's hard for you guys to see maybe there, but I have a mark right there. You can actually do this too. You can actually fill in that mark with your pencil. Your pencil's going to track right in where your marking gauge was, so it's easy for you to see. Okay, that's my marking gauge line right in there. Okay, and you can do that on all four of your legs. Okay, that's it.